Hello and welcome to this video. Yeah, I'm back with the coverage for the candidates tournament. After I couldn't do the videos for 2 days, my voice was just too the shape of it was too bad. Now it's a bit better. It's not like I'm completely back to 100% again, but it's good enough to do videos. Yeah, so what am I going to do? I'm basically behind 3 rounds. So I'm going to do this video, which will cover rounds 4 and 5 in one video, and it will be a little bit less detailed for the games. I just feel like games that are 3 or 2 days old, I mean, you probably have seen them already, so it's just a bit late to do a full-fledged commentary on them. I will do, however, round 6 in full length, let's say, and this will be a separate video. So let's have a look at what happened in rounds 4 and 5. I still want to check all the games quickly and focus on some key moments. Okay, that is Svidler Aronian from round 4. And we have an English opening. Svidler is playing a very versatile fashion in this event, trying different openings. Here c4 is played, probably because Aronian has the Berlin as his repertoire. So we get this English opening here with e4. It's an interesting sideline. It's quite remarkable how Black's strategy is after e4. He takes on c3, b takes, and now Black plays the move c6. Black's idea here is to play d5, and this is an interesting moment. This is actually the reason why I want to talk about this game at all. It's not super interesting in the later stages of the game, but it shows that sometimes there's a misconception about when a position should be opened and when a position should be closed, or how bishops, for example, fare in closed and open positions. Here, white has the bishop pair, so you would imagine that black should try to keep the position closed and not open it too quickly. So what about something that does keep the position closed? Yeah, black plays d6, for example. Yeah, white will probably play like d3, and black goes like knight c6 and knight e2 and bishop e6 and h3 and maybe queen d7 and then f4, and then you suddenly realize that black's position is pretty terrible. I know that this was a very cooperative way with queen d7 and bishop e6, but the thing is, white has, from a purely central control point of view, a very, very good control after he gets in d3 and the whole position like this. I'm sorry, that was the game. The whole position somehow gets frozen in the middle. If this is established for white, he often has chances to play on the flanks, and here this is f4. In such a stable center situation, if you can expand on the flanks, this is good for you. And the fact that this position is closed at the moment is not really a big problem for white. The bishops are also not particularly bad in closed positions, especially not in closed positions that are actually, let's say, moving forward. Yeah, if the position is not totally rigid, then the bishops often do a very good job in supporting the pawns and pushing forward. This explains why Aronian here does not want to keep the position closed at all. Quite the opposite. He plays c6 to prepare d5, busting the position open. So how does that feel logical, to open the position against the bishops? The thing is, what black has, he's better developed, and he tries to accelerate the game in a way and make some use of his knights. We see after knight f3 that white is directly attacking this, and we get some kind of tension here. If white plays in a more conservative way, like knight e2, then black will play d5. And this position, let's say castles, knight c6, shows what black's idea is. Both knights now have good central squares, And those pawns, they are not very dangerous at the moment. If white advances here, let's say d4 for example, then black is happily opening up the position even more. Something like this and this is very, very active for black. Yes, it's an open position. White has 2 bishops, but black's pieces are all active and he has more pieces in play at the moment. Yeah? This is still back on c1. So in a way, sometimes you can also describe that bishops want positions that are usually a little bit more slow developing, yeah, and not they shouldn't have a huge knights need acceleration in a way. Yeah, they should be used in a quick way. If you have better development, it's often better for the bishops to have some time to get them in position, let's say. And here black tries to, let's say, be quicker and try to not allow the bishops to become into good positions. Yeah, in the game there's knight f3 played and knight takes e4, castles, and white gets this pawn back on e5. Yeah, after d6 he plays knight takes e5. Knight c5 now. This is a new move actually. There has been a game between Giri and Anand where Anand took on e5. However, after bishop takes e4, he was slightly worse and in fact pretty quickly blundered in that game against Giri with bishop e6, after which bishop a3, rook e8, queen b1 happened when simply 2 pawns are hanging. Yeah, so this is the novelty by Aronian, and they both probably had seen this position before. It's a pretty funny sequence here with f5, f4, and while playing d4. Yeah, all this is
check,
relatively forced.
Check.
And we get this ending now, where with white being a pawn down, but he has a compensation in terms of the bishop pair. It's very difficult for black to ever try to make something out of his pawn. White is just a bit too active, and we quickly see those trades happening. White won a pawn, but the actual extra pawn is, well, maybe c3, and that doesn't look very relevant. However, still it feels like white should be able to press a little bit due to his more active pieces. The bishop here is a bit more active, and the rook here as well. Especially this idea, pushing the a pawn and maybe getting at the c6 pawn, seems dangerous. It feels like maybe there should be something for Svidler, but in the game, Aronian defended
check
at the end. Yeah, so around here you feel like maybe there's something, but black gets this back, gets on the a file ultimately, and this is a draw now. The computer is not very convinced initially, but if you give it some time, and I mean the human can assess this, I think, pretty clearly. Yeah? The black rook and the pawn here, they are not, let's say, attackable by the white king, so this is kind of a self-sufficient construction. The rook is always looking at this pawn, so it cannot promote, and black is just staying on the king side. So this is a draw, and they agreed after that move. Yeah, maybe there was something for Svidler. It felt like it was a little bit better, but it wasn't something very obvious, let's say, or something that commentators pointed out. Also, it's not like the engine is like, frantically blinking at some point and says, hey, there was a win. Okay, the next game I want to check is Nakamura Giri. However, I want to just look at this very, very briefly. Not because the game looks uninteresting, but because it was played in like 40 minutes and both players clearly knew the whole game from their home preparation. They had a semi-Slav. This is a very common opening line. White advances in the center. And around here, tactics begin. Yeah? The h2 pawn hangs, so g3. rook e8 and knight f5. Yeah, black goes bishop c5, bishop f4, queen to b6, and king to g2. Yeah, to show that there's a history with the players here involved. In this position, the move knight takes f2 was played by Shirov against Giri. Yeah, in 2014 in a I think they played a short match of a couple of games in Horeven, probably mispronouncing that terribly, in the Netherlands. And after e5, Giri got a very strong attack, and ultimately after 97, b4, it's super sharp stuff. Knight e5, knight e4, got a strong attack. So this clearly was part of Nakamura's preparation. He could have anticipated this position as Giri had this on the board with white. Yeah, you also always check what the other guy plays with white, and they very often play openings from both sides of the board. So king g2 played by Nakamura, and now Giri improves on that knight takes f2. He plays the move g6. h3, counter-attacking the knight, and now knight e5 was played. This is the novelty. Yeah, technically speaking, the novelty. There was another game with Shirov involved, 2015, where Shirov took on f5. Yeah, and now the thing is, the next moves, and the game lasts further 13 moves, is all the main line of any engine, and it is basically given almost instantly.
Check.
And they just played that very quickly, and yeah, it feels kind of pointless for me to analyze this in a way, because yeah, not even two players at the board playing, they just reproduced what their computers told them. Yeah, black now doesn't have much of an alternative. It's also very straightforward. Knight c4, there's a threat on e3, so white has to take it. f5, getting that play against the king. And c5, yeah, opening up the bishop. It's all rather, they're even logical looking and not totally irrational moves. Check, and knight f7, yeah. And again, this looks like a very sharp and interesting position. Now, the problem is that after rook to f8, now white has no alternative to play knight d5. And after knight d5, also black cannot do much else. The queen is attacked. If you take,
check.
It's not very advisable. It's a check. So the queen has to capture on b2. And now we see the draw. Knight e7 check. King goes back. Yeah, I mean, what else? You don't want to do this.
Checkmate.
So back.
Check.
And check. Yeah, and the king cannot go here or here, as
check.
This is also a pretty embarrassing check, losing the queen. So after this, where do you want to go? Yeah, well, he went to g6. Can you go back here? Yes, you can. But there's also a draw. Yeah.
Check.
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 And check. So they repeated
check.
two times and now agree to a draw. So what to make of such a game? It's always a little bit difficult. Yeah. First of all, it's not very exciting for the spectator. It's just a quick draw. Ultimately, it looks like an interesting game, but it's mostly reproduction of things. And what to make of this game? I mean, from black's perspective, you often get Giri often gets some kind of bad press for playing many draws, but you know, he's black here, and it's absolutely not his problem. Yeah, if he's got black in such an event, a draw is basically not a bad result, and in this particular line also seems very difficult to deviate. But what exactly was Nakamura's agenda here? Yeah, maybe he knew that this would be ultimately a draw. I mean, this particular line with perfect play, and he just wanted to test Giri if he knows that particular line and play a very low risk kind of game, yeah, with the draw in hand. This kind of strategy sometimes is quite successful and has been used by Nakamura before. He played a very sharp game. I'm not sure, is that 1 or 2 years ago? I think 1 year ago. Against, I think it was Karjakin. And Karjakin simply forgot what he had prepared 2 or 3 years before. And that supposedly drawing line all of a sudden won for Nakamura because opponent forgot his preparation. Maybe that was a try, yeah, just to play it safe and play with the draw in hand. But ultimately, a pretty disappointing game. Okay, Caruana Topalov is next, and this is actually an interesting game. At least the end of it. They had an Italian game. Caruana avoids a further Berlin. It seems that Topalov is very much insisting on playing classical openings here. He also plays the knight over some other Sicilians, but not in this event so far. A bit surprising. I thought maybe round 4 he already was on -2 at that point. That he tries to sharpen it up a little bit, but doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, an Italian game. Caruana doesn't want a Berlin, and we get a pretty standard Italian A4. This is a somewhat topical idea nowadays. The idea is to play an early knight A3 and get the knight over to E3 in that way. Yeah, not via D2, F1, E3. Yeah, it's an interesting little twist. Why not? Rook E8. Yeah, I don't want to talk so much about this. I think it's all rather logical. Yeah, they very often you see those trades. White now with bishop b5 avoided further trades to keep some kind of tension. Again here, yeah, Caruana clearly doesn't just want to exchange the whole board, let's say, and make a draw. Yeah, we see the symmetrical tendencies here. The pawn structure here is entirely symmetrical. The only difference is with the pieces, how the pieces are positioned. And I think if anybody, white does have a little something, but it is not much. He gets in d4. Now Topalov gets to trade one pair of pieces. This is not like playing for a draw or playing boringly. It's just what you have to do. If you have a little bit less space, it often makes sense to trade. Yeah, all very logical. b6. He tries to put as many pawns as possible on the dark squares, which is a typical player with the bishop on a light square. Placing the pawns on dark squares is a pretty normal way of setting up your pawn structure. Yeah, white now went d5 and now rook a1. Yeah, looks a bit passive to cover that pawn, but he knows that he will play b4 very quickly. Here we go. Knight f4. It's not a good idea here for black to snatch a pawn, yeah, after something like this. And let's say queen back and rook here. This will be falling, and then b6 is very weak. So black tries to keep this pawn structure intact. Knight f4 takes him. Rook b1 and bishop b5. Yeah, all looks quite normal. White would like to trade that bishop, and also if in case here black would take, then we are happily getting a passer. So black goes back to c8. He doesn't take, and now bishop f1. A good prophylactic move. This kind of knight is always annoying, and with bishop f1 on a very good day we might even get in g3. But first of all, it's a good protection move, and the bishop is a good defender. Yeah, f5 by Topalov. Now we see things are heating up. And now, very good move, I think, by Caruana. He notices that if black gets to take on e4, the d5 pawn becomes very weak, and so he plays c4. This is not such an easy move to make, because it looks rather unfriendly towards the f1 bishop. But this is simply a case of, you have to do it. Yeah, otherwise d5 becomes a bit too weak. And it's not such a big deal. That bishop is not entirely bad. For example, you can imagine that if those two pawns are trading, and very likely this is happening now, or very shortly, then the bishop has chances to get out via d3, sometimes also via like h4, g3, bishop h3. Also a possible thing. This is not a completely bad bishop. Okay, black played rook e to f7, rook a3, potentially trying to double with rook a to b3. Yeah, and the next move by Topalov is not very precise. I think the engine recommendation bishop d7 is pretty good. It has a look at this pawn, and this makes rook a to b3 an unattractive idea. Also, after bishop d7, if white captures, black recaptures and actually gains a tempo on that rook. That is also fine for black. What he did is he captured, and this doesn't seem to be so precise. Now knight takes, bishop f5, and now rook a to b3. Yeah, and it starts to get slightly annoying for black. He has to be super precise now. Engines recommend knight h5 now, or queen to d7. It's both not lots of fun. Yeah, that was already a little bit imprecise to allow white to get that doubling on the b file. And what he plays, bishop g6, definitely leads into trouble after rook to b6. It's just d6 is weak. And what exactly is black supposed to do now? The relatively best choice, even though absolutely not fun, is maybe to take on e4. I mean, this is not a move you love to play, but this at least relieves some of the pressure on the d6 pawn. But white is already quite clearly actually better. This is what he did, queen to e7, and this is leading to a losing position. White can take on d6, and black now is, objectively speaking, lost. Yeah, he took on h3, trying to complicate matters. That's the best practical choice, probably. Something like bishop b1 is just losing after knight f7 without any particular chance. This is hanging, and let's say queen takes, rook takes, and yeah, there's no counterplay. The queen here is nicely covering squares. The bishop is covering this. White is just winning. Yeah, this is what Topalov tried. It's move 38. That's an important information. So it's all about the time trouble. Queen takes. Good. This wasn't good at all. Yeah, here black is actually better. We don't need to analyze that much because this is also quite... I mean, this is the obvious move, I think. Queen takes. Yeah, and now, what is black supposed to do now? Yeah, his rook is attacked. He's a piece down, first of all. Yeah, his rook hangs, and after rook takes f2, there is knight c8. And this is a big issue now. Yeah, this is also hanging, and the queen is hanging. And black, well, what is he supposed to do? This? I can take on g6 even. Yeah, as knight takes. Oops.
Check.
Queen takes, there's knight e7. Or
check.
Black could take here.
Check.
And here white is also winning. This is protected. And after this check, just back. And nothing happens. Yeah. Black is lost. It's just what it is. It's lost. Yeah, rook f6 was played by Topalov. And again, knight c8 is happening. The same move that we saw earlier. Queen to d8. Yeah, and now, this is move 41. This is very important. Caruana now was not in time pressure anymore. He now has time to figure this out. And yeah, what can you say? He plays rook 1 to b5. And this move is very difficult to understand. I mean, I know it's one thing to play under this kind of psychological pressure and so on. and to sit at home, but there's really no big difficulty in figuring out that rook f6 wins. It's the most obvious move, let's say. It's something that you definitely check. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward stuff. Yeah, there's really no big effort in determining that as a win. And after queen takes, rook b2 is also kind of clear. How else are you going to defend the f pawn? Yeah, and it's just a situation where white is a piece up. It's just like that. Black can try to push here, but after f3, there's nothing happening. I'm not quite sure what Caruana's miss was. I don't think it's this move, because this kind of tactic is so easy for players of that strength. I mean, in particular, also, I mean, it's very easy if you see it on the board, but also in the calculation leading to that. So it's really a bit mysterious, because rook f6 was a pretty simple win. Yeah, rook 1 b5 was played, and now after rook takes f2, nothing is clear. Absolutely not. Yeah, what is white supposed to do now? This is hanging with check. If you move the bishop, black will take and can take now the knight, or can play queen g5. Yeah, in both cases, yeah, black is completely okay. Yeah, he decided to take there. Check. And that's it for the extra piece that white had. Yeah. Really hard to figure out what went wrong there. Okay, white now traded. And here, surprisingly again, Caruana opts for rook to c6 instead of taking on a5. That was possible, and I think still netted white very reasonable winning chances. It's equal material, but those pawns here are rather dangerous and far more advanced than, let's say, this potential majority of 2 against 1. The e-pawn is an asset for black, but the white king is very close and will help to stop that pawn, which is not the case for black's king, let's say, in relation to the a-pawn. Yeah, here white has very good winning chances, I think. Or at least, when he can very clearly try. Yeah, after rook c6, however, black went here and now got the e-pawn going. And here it's already very questionable if white can do anything at all, because the e-pawn is so dangerous. Yeah, rook e1, and now black comes with this rook. Yeah, rook f1 is a very serious idea. And here they agree to a draw. Why? Yeah, white basically has to, how do you call it? Yeah, he has to end the game now, basically, with g7. Rook takes, rook d4. Yeah, and this will end in a draw. This is hanging. Now you can continue this, but there will be very likely some kind of perpetual, like rook c7, rook a4, c6, rook c4, rook e7, rook g4. Yeah, and yeah, this will end in a draw, and it ended in a draw. The game was finished here after rook f8. Okay, yeah, this video, as usual, gets longer than I intended. So, next game is Karjakin Anand. Here we go. Where is it? Karjakin Anand. Yeah, okay. And an interesting opening here. A Reti system with an uncommon move order with e3. Yeah, the main point of e3 is, I guess, that he didn't want to go c4 immediately, so that black and Anand does not have a d4 as an option. That move is surprisingly rarely played, even though I think it is a very decent option for black. It's ambitious, but also I think quite promising. But this is prevented by Karjakin with e3. Of course, he gives up on any ideas to combine then c4 and g3, but still, knight f6, c4, e6, b3. Yeah, that doesn't look so exciting, right? But to be perfectly honest, I think games from openings like that quite often nowadays on the top level tend to be more interesting than games from sharp looking openings, because here we actually quite often see play over the board without that much preparation, and also play where more pieces are kept on the board. This in fact will lead to a very interesting position. And captures on d5. Interesting. Yeah, now Anand has a choice. He can take with the e-pawn and go for an isolated queen pawn position after d4, knight c6. This is definitely not bad for black, and was a quite viable option. The IQP positions from the Tarrasch defense of the Queen's Gambit declined. They are usually eyed with a little bit of suspicion on the highest level, but here White is committed to this setup already, and he also has not fianchettoed his bishop, so this should be quite okay for black. Anand plays with the knight, however, but it's not a bad move. I'm just saying that here e takes d5 was quite a valid idea. Queen c2, knight c6. Yeah, and you can ask here, what exactly is White's point? Yeah, what White is doing here, he keeps the center pawns flexible, and he now goes for some flank action with the move h4. That's quite interesting. That idea is well known, especially from the Sicilian defense with reversed colors. Yeah, for example, if black's pawn would be on e5 here in this position, then it would look a lot like some Sicilian with reversed colors. The idea with h4 is really as primitive as it looks. Knight g5, trying to checkmate black. Is that dangerous? A little bit. Yeah, we shouldn't underestimate ideas also related with this bishop. If black now, Anand directly reacted to the move. After he went b6, we can play that first. Yeah, b6, a3. Now he directly reacted to the move by playing f5. Yeah, what happens in this position if black plays, let's say, bishop to b7, some kind of normal standard looking move? Yeah, there is knight g5, and this is really a problem for black. If he goes knight f6 to cover that, then knight to e4 becomes a problem. White now threatens knight f6 and queen h7 mate. And tactics are already popping up here. This, g6, for example, there's knight takes e6. And white wins.
Check.
This is a complete disaster. But it has pretty cool lines. g5, knight g6,
check,
for example, is one of them. And here rook h8 mate is around the corner. Or white winning back like everything. Very nice. Knight g5 is a serious idea. It really is. You can, however, argue if f5 was really necessary. Black, for example, also had a move like knight to f6. Yeah, that shields or covers h7 for the time being, and is also not looking that bad. White has ideas here. Yeah? Knight g5, knight e4. Okay, f5. The drawbacks of the move, or the main drawback of the move is just what we all know: pawns cannot go back. It weakens black structure quite a bit. Bishop b5, bishop b7, knight d5. Here black also had queen takes d5, a move that looks maybe a little bit shaky to position the queen and rook here on the same diagonal, but after bishop c4, queen back, it doesn't feel like white can do much directly. Here black also seems to be okay. Anand took with a pawn, however. And now after d4, I think the opportunity, now he skips an opportunity that is pointed out by the engine. It's not a very intuitive idea maybe for a human player, but it's interesting. He could have played c4 in this position. The idea is that after b takes, a6 can be played. And this leads to a very interesting play. If white now takes, he's a pawn up, but after, let's say, c5, black has the idea f4, and this leads to a very complicated play where black has quite lots of counter chances. Note that the position is messy, and this bishop can prove to be very useful. There are a couple of other possibilities. White can also go back to a4 here in this line, after which black has b5. Funny idea. The idea is that this
check
drops a piece, but white of course can go back here, and now black has knight a5 or the move b4. In both cases he has rather decent play for the pawn. It's however not a very intuitive decision and not very obvious or anything like that. It was an interesting option though, that shows that black's position is not completely bad. Rook c8. Here now white captured on c5 and castles. Yeah, shows that white is not completely married to the idea of giving checkmate here on the king side. He just is content with playing this position. So why is this position easier to play for white? The reason is those three pawns have moved and have left quite a number of weaknesses behind. Like the pawns themselves can be weak, but also squares like e6, d6, c6 are potentially weak, while white's position is more compact. He doesn't have clear weaknesses in his position. This position is easier for white, and we see in the game that after a couple of further trades, we have this traded and the bishops traded, we see that white now has a couple of ideas. He can use the e5 square, which is weak. Black very much would like here to play f5 to f6 back maybe, or f5 to f7, But the pawn being on f5 is just absolutely not helping. And we have the hanging pawns that cannot easily push forward at the moment. After white's next regrouping, there was so much pressure on the c5 pawn that Anand felt obliged to push. But after takes, queen e5, white now definitely enjoys the better game. I mean, I think white actually was a little bit better the whole time, but now it gets to be rather apparent, what the problem is. Those pawns are just loose and weak, and black is suffering quite a bit and trying to keep this covered. He tried g6, but see how this works. The rook is coming here and has pressure against both pawns. It's an enormously uncomfortable position for black.
Check.
Get some simple threats.
Check.
The knight is coming over here, so that now black's knight also was forced into passive position. I can just repeat once, but not 3 times, please. Position is absolutely bad. White is also intending this and maybe take that pawn at the right moment, but one issue is also white can improve his position so easily and effortlessly. King can approach, for example. It's very, very, very awkward. Yeah, I mean, this move doesn't help him, but black's position was very, very bad. A6, knight c3, and here Anand already resigned. He has absolutely no good reply. White is threatening this, and rook to takes e7. So he cannot move the king, just to show
Check.
the idea.
Check.
Because of this. And if you move the rook, where do you want to go? Well, let's say here, then just knight d5. And next white will take a couple of times on e7 and win the king and pawn ending. So a pretty awkward looking loss for Anand, who got into a bad position out of this unconventional opening. You can maybe slightly question f5 if that is necessary, and maybe here queen d5 was a wiser decision, even though also here black has slight issues here with this structure. Yeah, I'd rather be white still. I think a very good game by Karjakin and a very good preparation, a very good idea in terms of how to get some game going without a boatload of theory, and pose some interesting problems here with this h4 move. Very interesting way of playing. Yeah, you know what I'm kind of not very satisfied with? I would like to understand better how black could have better defended here. I mean, I think that black's position is slightly awkward, but my hunch in this is that maybe he shouldn't have traded so many pieces, the bishops, yeah. He traded bishops on f6 and bishops on a6 later, but I'm absolutely not sure. I don't think it should be so terrible for black, but it is absolutely difficult to play over the board without any doubt, as we have seen. Yeah, Vichy really got into trouble quite quickly. Okay, I'm changing my plans. I'm not doing round 4 and 5 in this video. I'm calling it a day here and do a separate video for round 5 and then a separate one for round 6 to not make it too long. So even though I tried to keep it brief, it got 40 minutes again. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the somewhat late coverage of round 4, and also make sure to check round 5 and round 6. Thanks for watching, guys.